you hear him still? No. Paul Nolan from Clondalkin.
Right, take a picture of him, boys.
Yeah.
Put him up and say, can anyone give us his name?
Yeah,
Can anyone get us his name?
Yeah, I'm sending it. I'll kick all the videos out around here.
Do think of.
Paul Connolly, journalist. Paul Dermot Connolly is an Irish investigative journalist, radio personality and documentary maker who worked for the Irish commercial television station TV3. He worked as a host for the various famous Irish sports shows and also as a host to a series of investigative documentaries self-titled as Paul Connolly Investigates. Now, that's the guy that dropped his phone at the protest, at the Coolock protest. Paul Connolly was with a group of Antifa counter-protesters, and while he was with the Antifa counter-protesters, he dropped his phone whenever they scarpered, whenever they were told to go. They ran. He dropped his phone. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us a few things. First off, I have to say, Paul Connolly done the first season to Inside the World's Toughest Prisons. He was sacked whenever Netflix took that over, and they give that to Raphael, who does a fantastic job. Paul done a really, really good job too, a fantastic job too, but I think Raphael does a better job because he's got experience being inside a prison. He was wrongly convicted and then released. So 20 years, I believe, wrongly convicted for murder. So yeah, go check it out. Interesting stuff. Paul done the first season, so Paul's well in the know when it comes to the BBC, the RTE, the mainstream media. He is one of their men. He's one of their soldiers. He's an investigative journalist. He also does investigative journalism for himself and for his own socials and, you know, his own documentaries. Paul Connolly Investigates. Really, really creative, Paul, by the way. I mean, that title just blew the head clean off me there. But why would he be at the protest? Well, there's a possible reasons. And why would he be with the Antifa crowd? Well, we all know for quite some time now that Antifa, the far left counter protesters to the nationalist protesters, what they are basically paid by the government to go around and counter any protests that the nationalists do. Now, I just on a side note, I went down to Dublin yesterday and there was nobody there. There was supposed to be a protest. There was nobody there. I had a video made about that. I was very angry that there was nobody there, but I'm not going to release that video because I've got my opinions about it now. Because there was a counter protest to that protest, even though the nationalist protest didn't show up. Antifa and the far left, they showed up in Dublin with say no to racism. Refugees are welcome here. The usual stuff, right? And the reason why the nationalist protesters didn't show up was because they said in the news that it was going to be a really stormy day. Now, it was a bit windy, mind, but I was there. The sun was splitting the stones. It was really warm. I think at one stage it was like 15 degrees. It was a good day for everybody. It was a better day yesterday than it was in the last protest. It was very cold the last time. So it would make you think the state is using not only, in my opinion, the news as an attack against the nationalist protesters that are telling the truth about what's going on in the country, but they're also using the weather. They're saying, look, it's going to be a bad day, no point going out. Nationalist protesters don't come out, but guess who does come out? The far lefties. Think about it. That's just a side note. That happened yesterday, right? So anyway, let's get back into this. Paul Connolly, the idiot, the investigative journalist that made a mistake. He dropped his phone as he scarpered like the rat like he is. He scarpered, dropped his phone. Somebody picked it up. I find this really, really weird. How were they able to get into his phone? Was there not a pin on his phone? Does he not put pins on his phone? Like everybody has a pin on their phone these days. He didn't do that though. He didn't do it. He left it open. So all that information that was on his phone, all of it. Now, what's possibly happening here? I don't know who he's working for. Let's just hypothetically say it's the BBC or RTE. They're the same thing. It's state media. British state media versus Irish state media. They're working in hand with each other because they're all singing from the same globalist song sheet. But there is a documentary being shot right now, 100%, for whether it's independent, BBC, RTE, whatever. There is a documentary being shot right now. And what they're doing is They need to agitate the nationalist supporters, because if anybody's ever been to the nationalist protests, they're nice people. There's no racism, there's no homophobia, there's no bigotry, there's none of those things, right? Yeah, you get the odd person saying things, but you get that everywhere, no matter where you go in life. But the bulk of the people that are there are good people that are just worried about Ireland. Plus, not to forget that there's there's all different people of color there. Black people, brown people, Pakistani people. There's nationalists from other countries. There's Bulgarians. There's Eastern Europeans. There's all these different types of people that are in support of the nationalist protesters, by the way, along with legal immigrants who have immigrated to Ireland legally and are really unhappy that their lives are being put in danger because Ireland has such an open door policy, where basically Ireland's is the most open country in the world. Anybody can come in. You don't even need an identification. We're allowing in hairy apists, speedos, criminals. Drug gangs are operating out of Ireland. There's shipping gangs of people just looking to Tusla and idle car services, and the child services in Ireland. And you'll notice that there's a pattern of behaviour. So what the government does is they operate with people. For instance, they'll have a group of people that will counter all the nationalist protests. Those people are paid, and they might not pay them directly from the government. They might use their state media. So they'll say, well, RTE, BBC, whatever company it is, can you give them money via us, right? And they'll pay people. They'll pay people as journalists. But really what they're doing is they'll get into a little group like the far left Antifa, and they will counter the protests. They will agitate the situation, cut that scene out of it where they're agitating that situation, where they're saying things to provoke the nationalists to say things themselves, record the nationalists saying things, and then dub that as, look at these far right bigots saying these big nasty things. Meanwhile, you haven't heard what's been said to them, and you haven't heard what the situation is about. I've heard of situations in America where there's the government and some entities, NGOs, leave bales of bricks, knowing that that's where Antifa is going to walk down. They'll agitate the situation. Antifa goes crazy and smashes windows in the city. Bales of bricks have been seen placed the night before a protest, just to make the protest look bad, and just to basically discredit the people that are telling the truth. So that's what you've got here. And Paul Connolly is a state puppet. He thinks he's doing the right thing. What I would say to Paul Connolly is, Paul, you've been absolutely exposed here, son. Completely exposed. I don't see how you can come back from this. There's not a time where you can go to any of these protests. You can't never go to the protests ever again unless you have security. Because you're first off, you're an Irish guy, I believe, and you're a traitor. You're an absolute traitor to the country. A proper government puppet traitor that there's no coming back from that. But there is one way that you can come back from this, is if you realize that your wrongdoings here and you go, well, hold on, right? I get that the nationalist protesters can be a little bit aggressive sometimes, but it's understandable because of what the government's doing to the country. But what I am going to look into here is the fact that hundreds of children have went missing from Ireland. 22 children in January alone have went missing in Ireland. Where did the children go to? That's a great documentary, Paul. You could make a documentary on the children going missing. That would do Ireland more justice. The people of Ireland would respect that more, instead of trying to agitate the nationalist protesters that are protesting to protect Ireland. Or what you could do is you could do a documentary on the people that are coming in. Tell the truth about the fact that they're coming in. Helen McEntee says that, well, even if they don't have identification, they still have to prove who they are. There's the lie. How are they supposed to prove who they are if they don't have the right identification? You're allowing people in, giving them an Irish ID card, scanning their eyeballs, scanning their fingerprints, and now they've got a new alias. We don't even know who they are. Any wonder that grape is through the roof? Harry Apin is through the roof. Speedos are coming into the country. All these different types of criminals are coming into the country. That would be a really good documentary, Paul. So why don't you do that? Why don't you go full independent? Walk away from the RTE, BBC, state media, and do documentaries on that, instead of trying to discredit the working people of Ireland, to try to discredit, and actually not discredit them, but actually tell lies about them, because you're working with Antifa, you're working with the far left protesters. And what he's doing is He's agitating. He's a far left agitator. And that's what's been exposed here. And all governments around the world do this. And it's absolutely disgusting. And there's no other possibility. I've seen pictures. I don't know if I've shared that at the start here, where he's sitting in a bedroom. It's all on his phone, and he's got a tricolor, and they're writing something on the tricolor because they're going there to agitate the protesters. He's not there because he feels strongly about what the nationalist protesters are talking about. His policies counter that. He's there because he's getting paid. He does not care. He's a rat. This guy is a rat, and that's why he scurried away. But this idiot didn't realize that he dropped his phone. And there's many more things that Paul Connolly could be speaking about here. What about I was walked through Dublin yesterday. The amount of homeless Irish people is absolutely disgusting. And I caught a guy out, what do you call that? Professional begging. Couldn't believe it. They were taking the spots as one guy left, another guy came in. Couldn't believe it. So, what I'm trying to say, this has been exposed. Now, this is a message to the nationalist protesters. And you need to know this, right? Right now, there's people in your ranks that are working for the BBC and RTÉ and state media and NGOs that are collecting information and giving that information back. Do not trust anybody. If there's anybody new that comes into the group that wants to know information, even me, if I come up to you and say to you, oh, well, what's the plan for the next 6 months? Well, you don't tell me the plan for the next 6 months. You don't tell me anything, even though that you're not a terrorist organization. You're only setting up protests against what's happening in Ireland. But you need to understand that the far left media wants to dub you as terrorists. The far left media wants to portray you as terrible, bad people. Hence why they've got Paul Connolly, investigative journalists, in here making hit pieces on you, agitating the situation, trying to make you look bad. So you don't trust anybody. A very tight-knit group of people that you know are not giving information to the state media. And that's what you have here. And you just need to stay pure and understand this. Whenever you're at these protests, please, if anybody watches this here, zero tolerance on anybody with racist language. Zero tolerance on anybody that's going to come out with bigotry. Zero tolerance on anybody that's going to make the nationalist protesters look bad. Keep your standards high so then they don't have anything to throw at you. Because that's what they're doing here. I guarantee not only are you going to get far left agitators, but you're going to get people infiltrating the nationalist protesters, screaming stuff as if they are a nationalist protester, but they're not. They're just there to make the protesters look bad. So you need to have zero tolerance yourself against all types of racism, because they will print that in the newspaper. They will put that in a documentary. They will use that against you to discredit you, just so the people who are still stuck watching state media like RTÉ and BBC will watch that and go, oh, this is terrible. These are big bad racists and everything that they're saying is lies. When we know everything, well, 95% of what the nationalist protests are saying is 100% is true. Is true. 95% of what they're saying is true. I disagree on a few things, a few little immigration policies I disagree on, but 95, the bulk of what they're talking about is the truth. The people who are lying is the media, state media, BBC, RTÉ. These people are lying because they work for the government. And the government works for who? Yes, the globalists. What are the globalists trying to do? We know that. Centralized control of money, mass immigration, complete culture change, get rid of Christianity, the promotion of Islam. This is what it is. The indoctrination of children in schools. It's okay to cut your wiener off. Do you know what I mean? That's what the protesters are protesting against. But they need to discredit that because they understand you're winning. So you need to make sure anybody that goes to the protests, zero, make your standards up here. This isn't about because of the color of somebody's skin. This isn't about somebody's sexuality or nationality. This is about us protecting Ireland from criminals, drug gangs. Not to forget that fentanyl's hit the streets of Ireland. That would be a good documentary for you to do, Paul. The fact that fentanyl has hit the streets of Ireland. So do you know what I mean? There's so many things that Paul Connolly could do a documentary on, but he would rather take state money to discredit the good people of Ireland because he's a rat. Simple as that. He's a pure rat. That's what I have for you today, folks. Make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Leave a comment in the comment section and let me know what you think. And share, guys. Just copy link the clipboard, make a little social media post, send a friend on Facebook or WhatsApp Messenger. Sharing is caring. I know I get a lot of shares from you. Right now, YouTube isn't allowing me to post links in the description. They've taken that ability away once again. It's absolutely crazy. I'm going to try to sort that out today. So anybody that's bought me a coffee, buy me a coffee link will be in the description. You can click it. So thanks to anybody that's bought me a coffee. I appreciate that there. You're all beautiful people. Stay strong, stay pure, and make sure you're able to identify these rats, guys, because there's many more of them to be exposed.